Hey everyone, today we'll be focusing on our C++ Basics course, and today we'll be focusing on our first program in C++. And without any further hesitation, let's get started. And now we're going to be focusing on our first C++ programming language. So what we'll be doing is that first, if you're on a Mac or Windows or Linux, you'll typically start creating a new project inside your IDE. And I'm using Xcode really for the tutorial series, just given the convenience of such. And the first thing that we're going to be doing is that we will be going to File, if it's already right up here, and then we're going to be creating a project. If you're on Mac, and if you're stuck on multi-platform or iOS, what you'll be doing is that you'll be going directly to macOS, and then you'll be pressing Command Line Tool. Then, what we'll be doing is that we'll be just giving it a name, so I'm going to go C++ first. Over here, you would have an organization identifier if you're developing Apple applications, but we're not focusing on that for the course, really. Our focus and goal is really just focusing on C++. So what we'll be doing is that we'll be going to language, and then, as you can see right here, there are already predefined languages already built inside of Xcode, like Swift, Objective-C, C, but we want C++. And then I'm going to press Next. You can select the destination where you want your C++ program to be located. I'm going to put it on my desktop and press Create. We can just ignore that by pressing Cancel. And then I'm going to expand this over here. So, to break down exactly what we already have in this case is our C++ program in of itself. All of the code that we are going to be outputting directly is going to be compiled directly inside of this function called the main function that we have. At first, typically inside of C++ programs, there's already organization of how everything is set up. At the top, where we see include, that is going to be including our libraries. That would actually give us other layers of sheets of programming languages that we're going to able to compile into this sheet that we have over here, where this include IO stream, its purpose is to enable the program to output data to the screen, and this has already been built on other piles of code that have already been written before to be able to allow us to output within our given screen. And this function right here is called the main function, where our main function is supposed to actually output all of the given following code. Now, inside the parameters that we have in these parentheses, we call these components parameters because they're inside of the parentheses. This part is considered an argument, and this part is also considered another argument. Typically, these are already been predefined inside of Mac. This one represents an integer argument, where it represents the number of arguments passed to the program from the command line. And this one is an argument vector, where its purpose is basically an array of C strings, which represent the actual arguments passed inside of the program. And allows us to give us a whole holistic understanding to be able to run our program depending on exactly what we are working with. But since we are focusing solely of just modifying the main function, we're not going to be worrying about these two parts so much. If it's not included as well within your following IDE, we can just get rid of them as well. But we'll just keep in mind of what will pass through in the future as well. And so the first part that we're going to be doing is that we are going to be doing this part over here. I'll just get rid of the comment that we have, and typically what we have is std count, which is allows us to be able to output our following code for what we have, count representing our output, and std in general means an abbreviation called standard namespace, where it contains all the classes, functions, and objects provided by the C++ standard library. And the reason why we use std typically prior to outputting for cow is that namespaces in C++ are used to organize code and prevent name conflicts, since the standard library is large and contains many commonly used names like vectors, strings, and counts. All of its components are grouped together with the std namespace. And so there is actually this one technique that we use called using namespace std, which prevents us from actually having so many versions of std and constant repetitions of following outputs that we would have. So we can just get rid of this part and have just count hello world over here and have our following output for our code. And the reason why as well is that return 0 conventionally means that we have successfully executed the program, and 0 is considered our base case whenever there's a successful component when running our program. But if we were to return, for instance, 1, this would indicate that there is an error or abnormal condition occurred during execution, but we're just going to be returning 0 since this is just a standard output that we have for following strings. So within the data types that we would typically have within C++, in general, we would have integers, strings, and booleans that we have, and the following output that we're going to have is going to be a string. Hence, we have the quotes that are already set right here. And the /n is considered an indentation for us to be able to actually, for instance, have another line of code that we would have. So since we're not going to have another line of code, what I'm going to be doing is just getting rid of that. And then I'm just going to press this because this is where we're going to actually have our output that we have inside of Xcode. And then what I'm going to be doing is pressing the play button up here to run, or a shortcut on Mac, and I have to actually put in my password for this, so the build succeeded. And there we go. We have hello world, and then finally we have the output that the program ended with Xcode 0. Now notice how, in particular, when we got rid of the /n, this part over here is already stuck together, which is not what we want. So that's why we keep the /n as stated before. Going to always allow that. There we go. Build succeeded. And then voila. That is our first output that we would have, and understanding between our whole scope between just the basics from what we've already started in terms of outputting our following program. So now let's head over to the next part of actually focusing on how do we create different multi-line comments and different forms of comments as well. Hey everyone, thank you very much for taking time to watch this video. If you found this video helpful, be sure to feel free and please like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions as well, feel free to put it in the comments section. And as always, take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.